One of the most untapped areas in the original Kenner Star Wars line is the first movie. And this makes sense. Kenner was getting their feet under them, they weren't sure what characters mattered, which ones needed to be figures, which ones didn't. And so the first 21 figures are rather unique in the entire Star Wars Kenner pantheon. There is some parallel with what happened in Return of the Jedi, with a lot of Jabba the Hutt's denizens, but for the most part, Star Wars, it's underserved. Whereas Return of the Jedi, they had the confidence to create as many of the characters on either side of the spectrum as they wanted, so they made just as many aliens as they did Rebel figures. They made the A-Wing pilot, the B-Wing pilot, General Madine, Admiral Akbar, the Rebel Commando. It was a nice balance. But if you look at the first 21 action figures from the original film, you see the heroes, some of the main villains and their cronies, and a lot of Cantina aliens, and then they quickly jump over to The Empire Strikes Back. That leaves a lot of Star Wars characters from the original film out of the lineup, namely the Rebels, and specifically the pilots.
All wings report in.
Red 10 standing by.
Red 7 standing by.
Red 3 standing by.
For those of us that grew up with the Kenner Star Wars action figure range, we probably all said at some point, why didn't they make Wedge? When are they gonna make Biggs? When are they gonna make Red Leader? And it never happened. Now, Luke Skywalker in X-Wing pilot outfit was very generic. He was so generic, in fact, that there are stylistic oddities about him that continue to be talked about to this day. Specifically, the black visor that some people have decided could be his hair, the fact that he doesn't have his gloves on, even though it's a New Hope-based action figure. It's a very vanilla figure design. Luke Skywalker in X-Wing pilot uniform could literally be anybody.
Hi, I'm Luke Skywalker.
Good to meet you. I'm Chalky Beige Painter. Back in 2020, for the 40th anniversary of The Empire Strikes Back, Hasbro released a Kenner-styled retro collection of action figures, and we were all hoping that we would get some unreleased characters in the Kenner style. They made a snowspeeder Luke Skywalker, which many of us had hoped would have been Wedge in Empire Strikes Back form, but no, they just made another Luke Skywalker. And it took my friend Sal at 2 Cents Toys to modify that figure so I could have a snowspeeder Wedge. But thankfully, the fans are doing the best work, and ProCustomFigures decided to start tackling the Rebel pilots, of which I've received the first wave. From what I understand, the design and sculpting of these figures was a collaboration between ProCustomFigures and ToyWeaver, and the result is impeccable, and I hope they collaborate more in the future. But these pilot figures aren't remakes of the original Luke Skywalker Kenner figure with just repainted helmets like so many customs are. ProCustomFigures has gone to the extent of resculpting the entire body to make it look accurate to the original Star Wars, which gives it a kind of 1985 Power of the Force feel. This to me looks like what Kenner might have done in 1985 or 86 if they'd released characters from the original film in the Power of the Force line. This first wave of pilots from ProCustomFigures includes a redone Luke Skywalker, Red Leader, Wedge Antilles, Biggs Darklighter, and Blue Leader from Rogue One. The figures are extremely well done, and each one looks to have a uniquely sculpted head. The bodies are all the same, the only difference being that the Rogue One Blue Leader has a blue uniform rather than the orange jumpsuits of the original Star Wars pilots. The paint applications on the helmets are very nice, depicting the unique deco on each individual pilot helmet, and the helmets themselves are removable, which once again lends to that 1985-1986 Power of the Force feel. You'll find that the helmets are a little roomy. That's partly because each one of these helmets is the same accessory, just given a different paint app, but it's also helpful in giving the helmets the proper scale appearance they had in the movie because those helmets were big. And there's an added collector benefit in that they're unlikely to scratch up the hair of the figures when removing them. Each pilot comes with the standard Rebel blaster in black, and Luke Skywalker comes with the added bonus of a blue stick lightsaber. But here's where it gets really interesting. ProCustomFigures have made alternate pairs of arms for all of these pilots. I'm assuming this has to do with the fact that Luke Skywalker was prioritized, but you get a pair of arms with no gloves, and you get an alternate left arm that's crooked, so you can display the pilots holding their helmets rather than wearing them. It's obvious to me that ProCustomFigures prioritized the design of the arms to go with Luke Skywalker, because when you actually look at the sculpting of the hands, in the gloved arms, the right hand is designed for the lightsaber, while the left hand holds the blaster better. The right hand can hold the blaster just fine, but but it holds it at that Kenner angle that we're all familiar with. But the left hand holds the blaster much closer to the way the vintage version's right hand did. The nice thing about having the ungloved arms for Luke Skywalker is that when you take his helmet off and put the blaster in the ungloved hand, you kind of have a Dagobah landing vintage Luke. There is one thing you need to know about this arm removing gimmick. The pins for the alternate arms, particularly the crooked arm that holds the helmet, are very thick, and when you press them into the torso, they can actually widen the hole that the arm pins go into, which means if you decide to remove the crooked arm after having it in a figure for a while, the other arms are suddenly loose in the sockets. I think it was a really good instinct on their part to make the pins for the arms thicker so that when you swap arms out, they don't pinwheel loosely in the torso. You want them to have some posability and some tension. However, in the case of the alternate arms, and especially the crooked arm that holds the helmet, the pins are a little too thick, and they do permanently widen the torso holes if you're not careful. If you know that's how you're going to want to display those pilots for all time, just holding their helmets, which is a preference, then by all means go ahead and just permanently make that the configuration. However, if you're not sure and you think you're going to want to swap things out, you might want to shave those pins a little bit or have some heat shrink ready to put around the pins to add thickness back into them, because you're going to need it. One of the things I'm loving the most about the Pro Customs Figures pilots is that there's a kind of coincidental synergy with another fan maker, Stan Solo. While Pro Custom Figures and ToyWeaver have been making the pilots, Stan Solo has been making the astromechs that go with them. So right now in this first wave, I already have the astromechs for Biggs and Red Leader. Finally, I just want to make mention of two other figures in the Pro Custom Figure range that have been released that are in the pilot range in my mind. They're not pilots literally, but they're part of that New Hope Rebel Alliance grouping, General Dodonna and Captain Antilles. Captain Antilles is modeled after the way he looked in the original film, which of course was mimicked in Rogue One, and as accessories they give him a black Bespin blaster just as Pro Customs Figures did with their Rebel fleet troopers, and they give him the plans to the Death Star. General Dodonna also has a black Bespin blaster as one of his accessories, but if you'd like to lean more into that Return of the Jedi Power of the Force era of Kenner, he comes with General Madine's swagger stick. My General Dodonna has a misplaced eye on the left side of his face, and the paint apps on his shirt are a little damaged and funky. I assume he was the runt of the litter at the factory, but that's not a common occurrence with Pro Custom Figures. In fact, this is the first and only figure from Pro Customs that I've received that has any paint imperfections at all. So I'm 100% confident that's not standard for how this character is supposed to look. I know you've heard me say this a million times, so I'm not going to repeat myself too much, but these fan-made, Kenner-inspired Star Wars figures from Pro Customs and ToyWeaver and Stan Solo, they're the most exciting toys I've had in the last 5 years. I can't wait to see the new offerings they announce, and I really can't wait for them to arrive. They've done an amazing job on these pilots, and I can't wait to see what they do next. Hope you enjoyed that, everyone. If you want to see more videos about Star Wars toys, you can watch our Star Wars fan-made toys roundup here. Or you can watch a random video here because I just blanked out and I can't remember what I was going to say. But there'll be a video here, so go ahead and watch it.